Hello guys, and welcome back to the shop. Today's video is going to be all jacked up. Alright, so today let's talk a little bit about automotive safety. And what's more important than a jack when it comes to automotive safety? Well, nothing. You got to lift up your car, right? And look at this beautiful Craftsman jack that I have here, a floor jack. Now, I got this jack because somebody threw it away. The reason they threw it away is because it didn't work anymore. And I always like to find out why things stop working, because some of them are fixable, some of them are not. In the case of this jack, it was fixable. I started cleaning it up and figuring out what was wrong with it. Then I realized, you know what? This is a good video to make to help out somebody else out there. Like the guy that threw this away, he didn't know. And I'm sure there's a lot of guys out there that may not know how to fix these jacks when they go bad. So I'm going to help you guys out and give you a quick rundown of how to deal with a floor jack that starts to give you trouble. Now, the problem this jack had was it was filthy as heck to begin with. I mean, I took a lot of time to be able to clean this up to where you see it fairly decent right now. It was greasy and oily and dirty, and oil and dirt are the enemies of most mechanical devices, and a jack is no exception. You get it full of oil and dirt and grease and stuff like that, it's just not going to work right. And aside from that, it was full of air, and you don't want air in a hydraulic system because it just won't work properly. Air is not compressible the same way as hydraulic fluid is, so in other words, it just won't work. Okay, you got air bubbles in there, it just won't let you do the job properly. So I tested this when I got it back here, and I lifted up my truck, and it did work. It did lift up the truck, but then after a few minutes, little by little, it would start sliding down. And that's not something you want in a jack. You don't want that. That's a safety hazard. You can get crushed under there. I mean, right now, it was doing it slowly. All you need is to one day let go and just let go really fast. And you're under it, you got no way to get out, and you're trapped, or even worse. So let's go over how to deal with situations like that and some of the things on here to maintain and deal with on these jacks. So let me pick up the camera here, and I'm going to move you guys around a bit. First of all, before we go in for a closer look, let me point out a few things that you should do to your jack on a regular basis to keep it working properly. First of all the wheels need to be lubricated, like these front ones that just roll around. Some regular grease, WD-40, some oil, anything in there to keep it lubricated so it doesn't get really tight and bind up and refuse to roll. Like this one is okay. I'll show you in a minute. The other one, some of them, like these over here, they have ball bearings underneath. And I'll turn it around in a minute and show you. But the ball bearings, again, you can lubricate them with oil, WD-40, whatever you have on hand, whatever is convenient for you, just to keep it lubricated and keep them moving around. These are like casters. They go in all sorts of directions back here. So they do have ball bearings up here, and be careful if you ever undo this, the bearings will fly everywhere. They'll just roll all over the floor, so be careful with that. Here you have a grease fitting. Every single jack I've ever had has had a grease fitting right about there. So that's something that you should always keep lubricated, because you want this to be going up and down nice and evenly. You don't want it to bind up or give you trouble. Okay, before we continue with the rest of the procedures, I turned the jack on the side so I could point out a little further what I was talking about earlier. These casters have ball bearings in here. You can undo the nut up here. It all comes out, and if there's some missing, you can put some back in, or if they're really, really gunked up with dirt and grime and grease and whatever, you can clean them up, put them back in. Very easy to do. They're just regular ball bearings. I'll get in closer here so you can see in a minute. But it's a simple system. It's not a sealed bearing system like something else. These are just loose inside there, and you can clean them up, lubricate them again, put them back together, and you got a brand new wheel that'll run perfectly. So let me get you in closer. You can see right there the shiny bearings inside there, and that's all you got. Just a bunch of ball bearings rolling around inside there, and you can see how very, very simple mechanism. They can be cleaned up and made like new if they ever give you any trouble. And this one, I can't tell. I may have to look at it further. I don't know if there's some missing in there. It is a possibility, but I see some empty space. Generally, it should be fairly filled up. So I may have to tear this apart and see if there's some missing in there and find some ball bearings to put in there. But very, very simple system. So bear that in mind. You can fix this if it ever gives you trouble. Let's see over here. On the inside here, all these gears and springs and stuff like that, you should also keep lubricated. Let me turn this around a bit. You should lubricate all this with oil, grease, WD-40, again, whatever you have, just to keep it all lubricated properly. This screw, nut, whatever you want to call it right there, stay away from it. Don't touch it, don't mess with it, don't turn it, don't do anything to it. That is for adjusting the jack. That has been preset from the factory. Do not mess with it. If you do, you're opening up the potential to getting hurt. So leave that alone. Don't mess with it. If your jack has trouble that it has air in it, I'll show you where to go right here. This nut, well, it's a screw on this one, but sometimes it's just a plastic plug. Okay, so right here, let's call this, this screw right here is where you open it up to bleed out the air. And like I said, sometimes it's a rubber plug. You just remove that and plug it back up. So this is what you open up if you have air in your jack. You can see right there, it's a little dirty because I was bleeding it out. There's two ways to bleed this out. You can either take this off completely, and I'll show you in a minute the procedure, or you can just crack it loose a little bit and let out some of the air. Cracking it loose a little bit like that will be a lot less messy than the other way. And then all you do is basically pump it. Pump the jack and try to get it to release a lot of the air in there. See, the jack will still go up, and then when you release it and bring it down, a lot of the air will be released. So all you do is tighten up the jack, crank it up, and then later just release it, and you're going to see some bubbles coming out of there. See how you see bubbles coming out of there? That's the air being released out of there. As the fluid goes into the piston that way, pushing up the jack, when you raise it, when you bring it, it'll come back down. When you lower the jack, the piston comes back this way. The fluid will gush out this way, and the air, being lighter than the fluid, will find the highest spot in the piston, which is this point right here. So fluid goes out to lift up the jack, fluid comes back, and with it, it pushes the air. So what you're going to do is lift up this jack several times until you get the maximum amount of air coming out of there. When you have no air or one or two bubbles left, you're done. You're good. That's all you got to do. And then you just tighten it back up and you're good to go. So let's run through that. So what you do is, like I said, this make sure here, yes, it is cracked open a little bit. So we have it cracked open. And one thing before I continue, I don't want to forget, always use hydraulic jack oil, not brake oil, brake fluid from your car, not regular oil, not anything else. Only hydraulic jack oil is what goes inside these guys. It's a different formula. Make sure you get this. You don't want to take a chance on something else. Remember, your life is in danger with this machine. You are under it. You're risking your life with it. Do not cheap out. Use the good stuff. So let's see. To bleed this out, all you're going to do is tighten it up, and you're going to lift it up. And generally, if you lift it up all the way, you're going to get the best results. You can go halfway if you want to, but I suggest taking it all the way up as far as you can go, and then bringing it back down. So let's go all the way up and see what this does. And this is a nice jack. I mean, it's a 3-ton jack. It's an old Craftsman. It's heavy duty. It is heavy as heck. And the guy threw it away because he just didn't know any better. It was leaking in fluid everywhere. It was dirty. It was a mess. And I got it, cleaned it up, and now you see it right there? It stopped. It won't go any further. That's the height of the piston right there. And you see how it's going down very, very slowly. Let me bring it back up again. And you see how it just drops back very, very slowly. That means there's still a tiny little bit of air in there. Even with the nut cracked, the fluid will hold the piston at whatever position you stop at. You see it stopped right there. So having that nut cracked open has no bearing on this. That's a little bit of air in there that just needs to be bled out just by doing this procedure a bunch of times. And you see it's still going, but tiny little bit less. So let's do it. What we do is now just crack it open, let it go, release it, let it go down, loosen it. And there it goes. And then, oh, I should have shown you down here. See all the air bubbles coming out of there? You can see that right there. Let me crank it up again. I'll show you a close-up of that. This is a little bit messy, okay? Be ready to have to clean up a little bit afterward. As the air goes out, you're going to get some fluid coming out as well. But that's okay. You have some fluid ready to replace it when you're done. And the good thing about this is that you're bleeding out the air out of the system, and you're also putting in new hydraulic fluid at the same time. So your jack will be nice and clean inside. So we're all the way to the top. Now, keep an eye on that nut right there. As it comes out, you're going to see a lot of air bubbles coming out of there. See that? That's the air coming out of the system. And that's what you got to do. See how it keeps on going? That's what you got to do. There should be a point where no more air bubbles come out of there, and that's when your jack is perfectly good. You got all the air out of the system, and you got a good working jack. Now sometimes, let me show you back here. Sometimes, I'm going to have to clean that up in a minute. But sometimes this right here, this piston, this is what pressurizes the piston. Sometimes the seals inside here will go bad. Those can be replaced. You can order the ones for your jack and you can replace it. It's not that difficult a job to do. As you can see, there's no fluid coming out of there, so this system is perfectly fine. There's no leaking fluid. The seals are not leaking. So it just has some air in the system. That's all it is. There's no, if these seals were bad, they would be leaking fluid all over, and it's not. So those seals are perfectly good. So the jack itself is a good jack. There's nothing wrong with it. So the guy that threw this jack away didn't know what the problem was or how to fix it. He just knew the jack wouldn't stay up. And I picked it up for nothing, and I'm glad I could fix it up with just my experience, my knowledge, and a little bit of hydraulic jack fluid, which is not that expensive. So a couple of dollars, I picked up a nice old Craftsman jack. Now to some people, they may not care. I like Craftsman. I know the new Craftsman has some bad reputation, but this is an older Craftsman. This is from the old days. And in the old days, Craftsman were some of the best tools out there. And I don't know, I got a soft spot for Craftsman because I've been working with Craftsman tools since I was a kid. So for me, it's a nice, well-known, comfortable name. So anyway, I hope this helps you guys out. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and ring that bell so you get notified the next time I put up another video. And you get to learn from some of the things that I know, you may not know. We can help each other, and we can have a good time doing so. So I hope if you have trouble with your jack, this helps you to be able to bleed it out, keep it going, save yourself a lot of money because jacks are not that cheap anymore. I mean, you're talking a 2 or 3 ton jack, over $100 or more for a new jack. So Hope this helped you out. Talk to you guys on the next video. Bye-bye for now.